kind of a greedy gay. Alright. The next one, dude. We do this a lot here. We have a lot of kind of fun. You know, a lot of fun, but at the same time, I am super pissed. I am super pissed off. So I got to fight because of it. The next thing I think is very important is pacing. And that's just generally, like general pacing, just which we'll get into the little things of like how I understand it and everything. So let's move this. So with pacing, it is what it sounds like. We're gonna take certain scenes, or I mean, you could even look at it as like zoom out enough to say like the structure of the overall book. You zoom out more on that, and then if you're writing a series and all that stuff, and it's just ways to put speed limits on things. And because you're doing that, you're you're allowing the scene we'll use to move at a certain time. I don't know how to word it better than that. Because you want to get across something like the tense, like a really intense fucking scene, or a scene that's very cerebral, and like there's two people talking about something, and you really want to slow it down a bit and just kind of draw it out, or anything else like that. You know, think of an action movie, it's all quick and intense and shit like that. There's even like fucking torture scenes and shit. They slow those down to make them like hard to watch and stuff. With what we're gonna talk about, I kind of keep using examples of Kevin's story. So I think what we'll do, let's just call it the trial. I made it red, so hopefully now it's better you can see it better. What we did was me and Kevin had gotten together and began, and I don't remember how far we got necessarily, but essentially the idea will be a character will be going on trial, and going forward, what we were attempting to do was create a motive for another character, actually. We were trying to kind of see where we could go with this. And because of that, I think it really opened up, as it, surprise, surprise, you know, you write something down, all of a sudden the story just opens up. I think it really allowed Kevin to really see Tantorm in a different way, and the stuff going on there, and with Vathia. So I'm going to find that, I'm going to read it, and then we're going to kind of go over some pacing tips and stuff for it. Okay. There's a lot of, it's not exactly grammatically correct, and it's never been edited, as far as I understand it, and this is the only copy that I have. Okay, so bear with me. I will try to like, you know, talk through the mistakes and stuff, but I'm gonna start kind of keeping in mind in pacing with the trial. Okay, but to set it up, we find ourselves in a scene, and that is, I don't remember exactly what they call it. Like, was it Centrum? You know what I mean? Like it's in Centrum, but like what's the building called? I don't know. So we'll just say Centrum Court. And the people, I can't quite recall. I have not read this in months, or more than that. You ready? And I'll stop and we'll talk about pacing. The room began to almost stagnate as each sweaty man entered, filling the already choking air with a pungent odor of zeal and zest, of a man who proclaimed his own righteousness and elevated prestige amongst the little folk. This day would not only be of great importance, but one that would be seen, at least by certain people, as a momentous event in Tantoric history. Like right out the gate, we're setting up like, this is important. This matters. The great hall of Centrum Court were of 2 tiers. The first, made up of 50 rows and drew the span of 8 columns. Those in attendance of the first tier were of different councils, each separated by rows. The conglomerate of council had a variety of non-biased committees, the most important being Cotithus, the judicial administrator. He was from a long line of law-practicing people in his very prestigious family. His father helped form the expedition into Upper Greece, the most northern expanse of Tantorum, into the Trinity Forest. The importance of the quality of wood saw to the trades of man throughout the known lands. Yet some would argue that this only increased the value of the trading vessels being raided by pirates. After all, being made of very same wood the ships were. This was known of his family line, making them a clear, important family in all of Pristov, Tantorum's southern port. Though Revere Aelith would argue otherwise. The man's family only brought us more problems than the great famine of the Second Era, he said, though neither ever lived through it, speaking that which they did not know. This was common of the upper classes, a form of doublespeak. He argued against just about every proposal. But the feud between the Cotithus and the Aelith were heightened even more so than usual during council hearings. The rest of the tier comprised of marshals and officials that either governed over territories or delegates upon the behave of lords, and on even rare occasion ducans would make appearances when they are not engaged in foreign conflicts, which were becoming more and more prevalent and pervasive. In fact, the hearing was due to a certain conflict of interest amongst the Den of Wolves. This marked tone of the rarest event of all in Centrum's history. A lord was to be put on trial. This was no ordinary lord. In fact, he was known as the Dog of Doprava for his accomplishments in the conflict preceding the Second Valen campaign. This was Lord Gearlord. Like a hungry wild dog, he was quoted to eat up all in sight, meaning his adversaries. So, right there, we're setting up the world. It's like only a few sides work on this thing. We're setting up the world in this first paragraph. Key events, it sounds like. Maybe a little bit of history. Some background. Wow, I made that a G. People. It is very important for a couple reasons to do. Right here, it's so raw. It's a little hard to read and stuff like that, and even I'm like, what's going on? I don't understand. So the writing isn't exactly clear yet, which is a surprise. It's a first draft. But I want to kind of help out, especially Kevin, with this, of reaching a better, getting a higher potential out of his writing. So that first paragraph is, again, that's the first thing people are gonna read, and it's so important to capture people in there. What I've known, what I've done, is I heard somebody, I don't remember who, talk about your first paragraph, keep it really short, like 3 sentences. You know what I mean? Like, it's just something that's really, it encapsulates it. And my advice for this first scene, which, I mean, that was good, but my advice would be to play on a little more emotion. Where you could talk about the general vibe of this room. So, you know, you I think the first line is the room was filling with stagnant, fucking stinky dudes and shit. And they were shuffling through the fucking columns to get to their seats and stuff like that, which, yes, that's great. But let's kind of talk about the overall mood. You know what I mean? So when the reader is noticing, okay, everyone's kind of like on edge a little bit. Some people are a little pissed off, some people are afraid, blah blah blah, and then like, oh, there's a trial going on, and because of that, it's fine. And what you can do is then you can lay into the whole, the families, as long as it's going to matter to the story, is good advice. But again, you can do whatever you want. You can go into a whole thing about like a family, and then you're like, anyway, fuck them, and let's go over here now. Like, you can do that, but my advice would be in this first section, let's just slow it down a little bit. Let's just let's kind of talk about the overall feeling with a little bit more description. So if the room began to almost stagnate as each sweaty man entered, filling the already choking air with a pungent odor of zeal and zest, of a man who proclaimed his own righteousness and elevated prestige amongst the little folk. That's like a very long way of saying like a bunch of like pompous motherfuckers just walk into the room. And then maybe they don't smell the best. You can write and try to be fancy and stuff like that. You can just try to like impress with words. But I think simplifying it, there's nothing wrong with it. I mean, that was a mistake, and I'm sure I helped you with some of this wording. And I really think just let's simplify it a little bit. Let's get it back a minute. So we walk into this scene, and then the room's filling with all these men. And it's just like, it's putrid, it's rank, it's the odor's there. You know, you describe that. From that point, maybe talk about, like I said, the feeling in the air. Then after that, you go into what the Centrum Court is. Physically first, it was a two-tier building or layout or whatever. And the 50 rows, drew up a span of 8 columns, blah blah blah. You talked about the peoples in attendance, and then after you talked about the peoples in attendance, you then talked about a family feud. So from here, we'll just God, I hate what side works. Okay, for number 1, you talked about room. Then number 2, you talked about where and what the room is. Then number 3, the people. And then number 4, a family feud. You always want to have the reader, you're educating them. So in your mind, you really want them to know all this. You need them to know exactly where they're at. You felt like they needed to know what kind of people were in attendance, and you really felt like this family feud is super important. Enough so that it had to be mentioned. Now, there's a couple reasons you could say that. For the family feud, you could say it's just kind of like a vibe thing. It's like as in, it's something that's kind of creating a distinction in this. Like, okay, you know, like we're setting this up, so you can kind of get you see what's going on here, and here's these families. You can kind of see this is generally what goes on here. There's not a lot of agreeing. There's a lot of disagreeing and stuff like that. going into that, you could totally talk about, like, this is why people need to be kept in check, and then you can do a lore thing and talk about the holder of keeps and all that stuff. So there's some potential there with all this stuff going forward. We'll get back to reading. Okay. And then you said, blah, 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 here's the tier consisted of. Okay. This is a new paragraph. In fact, the hearing was due to a certain conflict of interest amongst the Den of Wolves. Describe what the Den of Wolves are, because we didn't. There's nothing. It just says the Den of Wolves. This marked tone of the rarest event in all of Centrum history. Wording. A lord was to be put on trial. This was no ordinary lord. In fact, he was known as the Dog of Dubrava. For his accomplishments in the conflict preceded the Second Valid campaign. This was Lord Gearlord. Like a hungry wild dog, he was quoted, eat up all in sight, meeting his adversaries. With all that being said, you laid out a couple things. Now we're talking about Lord Gearlord. Went right into what's going on here. So the first few paragraphs are just setting the mood, investing the reader into it. Though today none would be singing of his glories. The sad fact that he was being called a traitor brought him in chains in front of all in attendance to quickly turn their love into mockery and disdain. In an act of disgrace, the Lord was dressed in his military class A's and had his sleeves ripped away, exposing the naked grizzled arms of a man who carried, at times, the whole of Tentorm's might and fervor that led them from almost ruin. That steered them from almost ruin. Character introduction time, a new one. Chancellor Nick Vandensteer looked somber at the consort. He was in fact, in his mind, stamping out what was leading to the destruction of greed. And this is a quote. All in attendance here on the eve of Duar festival may be seated. We are here today to put Lord Japheth D. Gearlord on trial for the accusation of 1 count of high treason and 4 counts of espionage and 1 count of staging a coup. How do you plea? As all eyes were fixated upon the Chancellor, they quickly shot towards the disgraced Gearlord. His hands were bound at the front in chains, his attire ripped and tattered, along with his bruising and lacerations of the face. Though he did tremble, he knew that it was only a matter of time before he was to be put to death. Still, in his heart there was no regret, save for not seeing Vathia, perhaps one last time. It had been 2 months since they last shared a glance and a smile. It felt so distant looking back on the last moments. The last farewell. Thought only in his eyes couldn't fully encapsulate all the stories he wanted to share with him. This moment would be his last stand against the growing tyranny of the body of the committee. He thought only for a brief moment, then as if on cue, not guilty. That's good. That's really good. And to get ready for it's gonna have to switch because it only goes 60 minutes at a time. Right there, it's so good. I think it could have used a little stronger kind of paragraph before we got into the quote, because, but honestly, I think that's good. It's just like grammatical errors, as you could tell by the way I was reading. Other than that, it's not bad. You're really setting up something really intense. I don't know who wrote what, because I know we did it together, but I don't know if I wrote a few paragraphs and then he wrote a few paragraphs. I don't remember how we did it, or if he wrote it all and then would ask and I would give advice or whatever. I don't know. I can't remember how we did this. So I'm just going to give it all to Kevin. And that's good. That's very good. I mean, that's impressive. The writing there, personally, I find it impressive. The pacing there is perfect, you know? Little inner monologue thing going on, and then he kind of has a little thing with Avathia. And I don't know what we're going to do with this necessarily, like where this is going to be interjected, or is this a short story kind of thing? I don't know. Again, what I really think with this story, I should actually sit down and read these, because this would be so much easier. Let's get away from this on this video. Let's go, and we'll jump over the computer. Hello, welcome back. Okay. As you can see, here's what I was reading. There's a lot of mistakes, but we're going to look past all those mistakes. That's the whole point of this, where we're at writing-wise. Kind of what I was saying before. I really think that there's a lot of positive things in this work here, and even going and looking, I'd have to find those and piece them together. The story of Vathia and stuff like that. I think it's amazing. It's so good, It's really good, I think. Let's maybe do that. Make the easier words to read for me, and then we'll do that. Okay. Make a hell of a lot easier to read. I'll zoom in a little bit. Well, all right. Where did he say not guilty? How do you plead? He thought not guilty. Okay. Though the whole court erupted in a raunchous fervor and disapproval, Van Aster only looked on with a smirk and the shake of a head. Well then, almost under his breath, he looked back to the council seated around him. Shall we begin? With the tapping of the gavel. Tut, tut, tut. As the room died down and voices began to come to a whisper, fall to a whisper, all were seated through. Damn it. All were seated, though Gearlar was made to stand, chained and weakened. There was going to be no room for witness accounts. In the eyes of the jury, which only comprised of those who fabricated the claims, they made it assured that his guilt was already on the table, due to what was considered sabotage against the doctrine of Tantoric society, which meant that this was assailing our ways. Quote again. The amount of spies in the land have come to be too many for comfort, sisters and brothers. I do wish the other ways or means may pass before us, but it is clear all other bridges are and have been burnt. Mind you that these fires have all been in the making of a few that are in service to you and I, in our very ranks. Again, might I remind you all who have been sworn in, that are here to witness the undoing of lies and many traitorous sellouts who have betrayed these beloved lands. Lord Gearlord, at what point in time did you join this secret revolution group? The judiciary administrator asked. What group would that be? Lord Gearlord asked back. A guard nearby let the buttstock swing into Lord Gearlord's shin. Gearlord, I do not propose. I do not propose. I'm assuming propose you to be in a position to ask even the smallest rhetorical questions. Van Aster inserted. I don't remember you being competent enough to be a man of integrity. He snapped back. There was a moment of upheaval. Silence as Chancellor Van Aster gazed at him. The crowd began to mutter in this amazing act of defiance. Okay, I'm gonna stop here because it's a little tough on the on the mind a little bit because of it's really fresh, but I can show you editing techniques. Okay, so let's go
And let's start. Well then, almost under his breath, he looked back to the council seated around them. Okay, let me see. Not guilty. Blah blah blah. Venezuela looked at the smirk, shake of a head. Through the whole core of disapproval. Period. Vanity only looked down with a smirk and a shake of a head. Well then, almost under his breath, he looked back to the council seated around him. Shall we begin? As the room died down and voices began to come. Okay. The room died down and voices began to. Let's see. Let's say fell to a whisper. Oh, hello. To a whisper. The room died down and voices fell to a whisper. All were seated, though. All were seated. As all, I don't even know what they're called. Well, we're seated. This is how I do it, okay? So the room died down and voices fell to a whisper. Oops, my bad. The sound of creaking chairs and floorboards echoed as all the people were seated. Because what that's doing is it's allowing the reader to hear that. You know what I'm talking about? You go in those old buildings and you just hear the creaking of the wood and the chairs and all that stuff. Just imagine a bunch of men just sitting down and like all the creaking wood and shit. Sorry. And then I just I do this whenever I just can't think of the word fast enough. I'm like, what are they called? Are they? I don't know. I just put in parentheses peoples. And then I might highlight it like that and be like, I'll come back to that later. Fuck it right now. And then what we can do is get rid of this though. And then just throw in however. Pirlo, however, was made to stand, chained and weakened. There was going to be... Okay. We're going to say... according to the, and then whatever it's called, preliminary, something. I don't know. I don't know anything about courts, but according to the preliminary hearing, there was going to be no room. So. We'll do this. There was, quote, no room for witness accounts. As if, like, that's directly taken from some fucking person's mouth. In the eyes of the jury, I think you do this. I'm not really good with punctuation shit. In the eyes of the jury, which only comprised of those who fabricated the claims, they made it clear, they made it assured, right? Is that what you're trying to say? They assured that his guilt was already on the table due to what was considered sabotage against the doctrine of Tantoric society. This meant that let's just say the ways of the Tantoric, I wouldn't call it society or Tantoric, let's just use that word for now. would be assailed. Because our ways would imply something different. Okay, so let's read what I just edited. Van Anseer only looked on with a smirk and a shake of a head. Well then, almost under his breath, he looked back to the council seated around him. Shall we begin? The room died down and voices fell to an how about almost whisper. The sounds of creaking chairs and floorboards echoed as all peoples were seated. You know what I mean? Like, whatever that word would be. Gearlow, however, was made to stand chained and weakened. According to the preliminary hearing, there was, quote, no room for witness accounts. In the eye of the jury, which only comprised of those who fabricated the claim, they assured that his guilt was already on the table. Due to what was considered sabotage against the doctrine of Tantoric society. This meant the way of those in Tantorum, let's see, in Tantorum would be assailed. So this second sentence, like, I don't know, it doesn't make much sense to me. We'll have to come back to that. I don't really know. That confuses me. What you're trying to say exactly, because I understand, like, you know, they said that it's sabotage against the doctrine of Tantoric society. That meaning that, and we need to explain a little bit better, what does it mean? Do you know what I mean? So we're gonna mark that and just say, you know, let's describe that a little bit better. And again, I can't really edit that for you because, you know, this is not my world. I don't know. I really don't know what. Like, I could take a fucking guess, obviously, but I don't want to. It's not my world. The amount of spies in the land have come. Okay. Let's see who this is talking. Because assuming last we knew, Van Anseer was talking, wasn't he? Yeah, he just said, "Well then, shall we begin?" And then we went into a monologue thingy, and then someone speaking again. Some would imagine that it's probably Van Anseer, but it looks like it's not. So. Judicial administrator name, then so the judicial administrator, what is his name? Short description. And when I say short description, that could mean just kind of describe his clothes and his fucking face, or describe a little bit about the guy, like a man that fucking, I don't know, was hard to please because of blah, blah, blah. You know, just something like that to kind of give us something. Because whatever you're going to give the reader here, it's going to help them kind of piece together this man that's going to be speaking. So whatever you think bears importance, that's what you're going to describe. That's a long one, but this is going to be sent to you, Mr. I forgot your last name. Is it Tote Soak or Tote Soaker? I'm just kidding. You know, it's weird on my other screen. This is more like, okay. All right, so yeah, describe him in short. And so we know this is a new guy talking. The amount of spies the land have come to be too many for comfort. Let's pause him there. Sisters and brothers, I think you do that. I do not wish other way. Okay, hold on. I do not wish other ways or means may pass before us. What does that even mean? But it is clear all other bridges are and have been burnt. That sentence, I don't know. It doesn't make sense to me. The amount of spies in the land have come to be, well, too many for comfort. Sisters and brothers, I do not wish other ways or means. I do wish. Oh, I see. I just read it wrong. I'm sorry. I do wish other ways. How about another way? Another alternative. Or even, let's just say lighter means. For something. We need to find a good word here. For, I wouldn't say punishment. So, oops. Okay, we are going to go here. And we are going to open up for thesaurus. Okay. Yes, this one is going to be long. Jacob. I'm just kidding. You guys are my only two people that watch these. You probably don't even watch them. I'm probably making these for nobody, but I'm going to do it anyway. Because one day I won't be around to help anymore. And you'll have all these to listen to. Okay. Oops. Yes. I do wish another alternative or even some lighter means of some sort of, what's a good word? I wouldn't want to say punishment, but proceedings. Like we want to handle the situation. I wish we could have done it differently, and the way they handle the situation. Let's look up a couple words. Let's try punishment. Bring it to life in print. Slave labor, that's a good one. No. We could say disciplinary action. We could say that. Yeah, that would probably be okay. Where is it? Sisters and brothers, I do wish another alternative or even some lighter means of disciplinary action could have occurred. But, and don't worry if you're watching, Kevin, and you do not like any of this, your original copy is saved on my end and you have it, so don't worry. If you would like this, I will send it totally separate. Anyway, now let's read it out loud. And how it's stupid, but the way I kind of read it out loud is like, I'll be the character. And if it sounds right coming out of my mouth, it sounds realistic, then that's it. The amount of spies in the land have come to be too many for comfort. Sisters and brothers, I do wish another alternative or even some lighter means of disciplinary action could have occurred, but it is clear all other bridges are and have been burnt. Mind you that these fires have all been in the making of a few that are in service to you and I in our very ranks. So let's reword that. Mind you that these fires have all been in the making of, well, a few corrupted, let's say. Corrupted individuals. Ones that I might add Ones I might add that are in service to you. And I. A something. Not wound, let's just use cancer. That's a fun word. All right, from the top, from the tip of the dick. The amount of spies in the land have come to be too many for comfort. Sisters and brothers, I do wish another alternative, or even some lighter means of disciplinary action could have occurred. But it is clear all of the bridges are, and have, been burnt. Mind you that these fires have all been in the making of, well, a few corrupted individuals. Ones, I might add, that are in the service of you and I. A cancer hiding in our very ranks. Again, might I remind you, all who have been sworn in, that are here to witness Mind you, who have been sworn in. Might I remind you all who have been sworn in. Okay. Again, might I remind you all who have been sworn in that are here to witness. How about you? You are here to witness the undoing of lies and many traitorous sellouts who have betrayed these beloved lands. Lord Gearlord, at what point in time did you join this secret revolution group? Revolutionary group, the judicial administrator asked. Okay, that's pretty good. That's not bad right there. And also, yes, this is how fucking long it takes to edit your book. But how I look at it, if we go back to the previous episode, I was talking about right. When you have moments you wrote and you're like, I gotta take a break as fuck. And you were trying to figure things out, this and that. You can do this in the meantime. But when you have finished the book, your first book, this is the next step. And you will just go and fix. And I promise you, I will promise you, you will be looking at something and you will be upset because it doesn't make sense anymore. Or it's just, and you'll have to delete whole pages and rewrite whole pages. Like, that is going to happen. I promise you. So doing this, it's good practice. I mean, you're never going to release a book without at least editing it yourself, because when you take it to someone to edit this, finally, an editor, they can at least read it, understand that they know how to look beyond that. You know what I mean? Like, they understand, like, okay, like there's something good here. Let's just make this even better, kind of thing. That's their job, but you want to at least put a good attempt into editing this. You know what I mean? But look at that first few paragraphs. That's not bad. I mean, it was really only a paragraph we just did. That was good. I mean, I'll read it. I'll read it one last time, and hopefully it's edited enough where I can just kind of do this. But just listen to, like, let's see. Yeah, we can use that word. Let's just see how well this sounds, okay? Van Insteer only looked on with a smirk and shake of his head. Well then, almost under his breath, he looked back to the council seated around him. Shall we begin? The room died down and voices fell to an almost whisper. The sound of creaking chairs and floorboards echoed as all peoples were seated. Gearlow, however, was made to stand, chained and weakened. According to the preliminary hearing, there was no room for witness accounts. In the eyes of the jury, which only comprised of those who fabricated the claims, they assured that his guilt was already on the table, due to what was considered sabotage against the doctrine of Tintoret society, which meant that he did that thing. The judicial administrator, named Kevin, then described Kevin shortly. A man that was tall and short at the same time, mean and evil, but better than none. The amount of spies in land have come to be too much for comfort, or too many. Sisters and brothers, I do wish another alternative or even some lighter means of disciplinary action could have occurred. But it is clear all other bridges are and have been burnt. Mind you that these fires have all been in the making of, well, a few corrupted individuals. Ones that I might add are in the service of you and I. A cancer hiding in our very ranks. Again, might I remind you all who have been sworn in here, to witness the undoing of the lies and many traitorous sellouts who have betrayed these beloved lands. Lord Gilor, at what point in time did you join this secret revolutionary group? The judicial administrator asked. What group, faggot? Let's get it. Now, I think I can just stop there, but I think you kind of see how much you can really just spice it up a little bit. Now, this is a me thing, okay? The ... I do it a lot because ... I feel like I have to. You know what I mean? Like, it's just that. I'm emphasizing that I want a pause there. That is part of the character. I know that you can read it as such if you'd like, but for me, the ... means those moments, you know, when you're trying to say something and you can't find the words, or you're holding for effect, or anything like that. That's what those imply to me. That is something I do. I don't know if that's right or not, but fuck it. You can use it if you want. It just, you know, like right there. The amount of spies in land have come to be too many. You could read it like that, or like he's trying to be, you know, in the moment, like, let's just say too many. Like that. That's kind of what they imply. So there's a lot of things like that. Something else that I do is when I put it in italics, I'm implying that he's, I mean, you could, I guess that would work. One, I might add, that are in the service of you and I. You see what I'm saying? Like, it's like, that's why I do that. It's just like, there's emphasis there. And I forgot, I should have done it that way, because that's how you're supposed to do it. When it's out loud, and he wants to really emphasize that this is affecting you. All caps. But yeah, now I know this is supposed to be about pacing, but this is the beginning of it. And this is going to be kind of like a series of videos about how pacing will work. I will send this to Kevin and let him have it as he will with it. But I wanted to kind of show, for instance, if you really wanted to milk this scene a little bit more, like, he asked him at what point did you join this secret gangbanger society? And Gearlord's like, Shvei? Well, you could kind of have an awkward pause happening here, like do some descriptive things. The room fell silent, all eyes on Gearlord, and it seemed to be a tense moment that carried out forever. It wasn't until Gearlord finally spoke up. Shit like that. You can do that here to kind of stretch that out a little bit. Again, pacing, we're not quite there yet. I haven't shown you exactly how we're going to do some pacing, because I know for a fact, if memory serves, deeper ahead, we're going to have some times where pacing is going to be super fucking key. Super key. And we're not there yet. And I wanted to just start light and then we'll get heavy. And that will be the end of the first video, which I'm going to have to edit somehow. But yes, I will see you in the next one, and then we'll continue from here. But that's such an abrupt end, brother. Is your sister okay? Or is that your brother over there? And I said, that's both of them. They here together, they're going to go,